Hello, everyone. Happy Friday Eve, and welcome to Link Up Leaders, your direct link to leaders in supply chain and e-commerce. I am one of your hosts, Lisa Kinski, and I'm joined as always by Francois Jaffray. Francois, how you doing?
Doing good. How are you doing, Lisa?
I'm doing fantastic. We had some great tacos on this Thirsty Thursday, and we were doing great. Anyway, so today we are speaking to the second half of the Firing the Man podcast. We had Ken Wilson. Or the first half. Oh, so sorry. The second to come on our show, but equal part of the Firing the Man podcast. He is the colleague and dear friend of our very first guest, Ken Wilson, welcoming David Schomer to the stage. David, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Doing wonderful, dear. And welcome back to, you said your inbox of 1,200 emails. God bless you.
Yeah.
Welcome back to real life.
Thank you. Thank you. It just got done with a month-long sabbatical, and Lisa, we were talking before the show. That's what I'm coming back from and digging out of my inbox. So, but feeling refreshed and recharged and ready to go.
Good. Now, did you do like a staycation sabbatical, or did you like go to Disney or something?
So it was two parts. So the first part, we did a staycation for 2 weeks, did some fun things around our farm here in Missouri. And then the second piece, we went to Arkansas Hot Springs and then went down to Key Largo in Florida and in the Florida Keys and did some fishing, hanging out on the beach. And it was wonderful.
Wonderful.
That sounds so relaxing.
It does, yeah.
I could use that in my life right now.
Says the man who,
David.
I was about to say, says the man who voluntarily works like 80 hours a week. He needs a vacation. Please take him.
Yeah.
Well, awesome, David. Thank you so much. Well, we kind of already mentioned that you are one of the two hosts of Firing the Man. And we talked about it a little bit with Ken. But why don't you go ahead and just give us your perspective of your journey as an e-commerce seller, brand owner, host of the show, just go ahead and just give us your background a little bit. Although if anybody listened to your episode on Prime Talk, they know your whole background.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, we went way back on that discussion. But yeah, I would say more briefly, I about 9 years ago, graduated from college as an accounting major, accounting and finance, and went to work for a consulting firm where I was doing mergers and acquisitions, litigation support, kind of a hodgepodge of all kinds of activities, which I enjoyed. And 4 years, well, I guess it's coming up on 5 years now. I kind of started a side hustle just out of my basement. Wanted to make some extra cash to travel and started selling on Amazon. And that was something that just slowly grew over time. And at some point made a transition from just a part-time side hustle to something that I was working 15 or 20 hours on every week. And it was starting to grow into something significant. Around that time, I had started the St. Louis eCommerce Club, and that's where I met Ken Wilson, who's the co-host of the Firing the Man podcast. And right away, Ken and I hit it off. We had a lot of common interests and really like to nerd out on e-commerce and strategies and PPC and very funny. My wife gets sick of listening to me talk about like conversion rates, or being brand optimized or whatever. And Ken's girlfriend was the same way. And so, we kind of were each other's vent. And so we'd get together once a week and talk about what we were doing in our businesses and decided, we should start a podcast. We seemed to be asked a lot of the same questions at the St. Louis e-commerce club. And so we decided to do a podcast, and that's been wonderful. We're 65 episodes in now. I've been doing it a little over a year and have had some wonderful guests, including Francois. You check out his episode. It was a deep dive into supply chain and logistics.
And we will link that in the comments. And I have to
Yeah.
ask just because I'm nosy and curious. So you and Ken became very good friends. Did your wife and Ken's girlfriend also then connect on how much they were tired of hearing you guys talk about this stuff? Are they friends now?
They haven't yet. But
Okay.
at some point they will, and I'm sure they will have plenty to vent about. Because sometimes Ken's not available, and I have to go back to my wife and talk about my day,
You
right?
have to.
So
Too
What
funny.
I know you mentioned that it was something that you were just kind of attracted to, but what attracted you to it? Was it a random YouTube ad that was showing a Lamborghini and the guy sitting on the beach and telling you take my course and you'll make 10,000, or
On his private jet.
on his private jet?
yeah. So it was a combination of two things. One, I had a mentor very early on in life that I've stayed in touch with throughout my life, even through today. And I had kind of a rough week at work, was traveling quite a bit. And he told me that when you work for somebody, they tell you how much your time is worth. But when you work for yourself, you determine how much your time is worth. And that haunted my dreams. It really stuck with me. And I do think there's a lot of truth to that. I would say probably a week after he told me that, I came across some Facebook ad or something. And that's kind of what sparked the interest. But I've always kind of looked past the gurus and the Lamborghinis, just because I've been at this a while and I'm not driving my Lamborghini yet. And so maybe a couple more years. So, but yeah, I would say that's what attracted me to it. And I would say on top of that, I've had a pretty entrepreneurial history, and just like business. So it seemed like a natural fit.
Yeah.
What taught you the ropes?
I would say early on was the school of hard knocks. I made a ton of mistakes, and that was actually one of the reasons that I started the St. Louis eCommerce Club was, outside of YouTube and podcasts, there's not, I'm always very skeptical of courses. I've taken some excellent courses, but I've also purchased some that are terrible. And you don't really always know on the front end how how the course is going to go. And so I would say in the first 2 years, that was kind of just learning through trial and error and watching YouTube as everyone else does. But one thing that really accelerated my learning was connecting with people that are doing this. And what I found is that e-commerce can be kind of a lonely profession. You spend a lot of time behind a screen, but it doesn't have to be. And I would say there's a lot of people that look forward to connecting and like to talk about what they're doing. And so I kind of view it as a rising tide lifts all ships. And so if I can have an hour conversation with somebody and impart some of my knowledge on them and them on me, then it's duly beneficial. And I'll do that every week. I do enjoy that.
That's fantastic.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, I would say 75% of the courses that I took at school are bullshits.
Well, yeah.
You can only really apply some of the knowledge that you actually learned, and you're paying ridiculous amounts when it comes to out-of-staters. And when you put things in a perspective, there, it seems like the courses for something like Amazon that teaches you a true trade are beneficial, and they are, a skill that you could definitely learn. But the one thing, and I'm sure I've talked about it several times on our podcast as well as other people's podcasts, is just the aspirations that they portray are not realistic within the timeframes that they say. They say, 6 months, I'll get you up to $10,000. And what does that actually mean? I mean, you could say that you're a 6, 7, 8, 9-figure seller, but if you're running on a 0.2% margin, then, I mean, what even is that? Why does that matter? You could be spending all the money in the world in PPC and be left with little to no margin. So that's where I kind of call the bullshit on the courses.
I was going to say too, that's where I take issue as well, because a lot of them promote the courses in terms, or like the Instagrammers or something like that. They promote the e-com or the Amazon game in terms of revenue, not in profit. I'm like, you guys aren't actually telling people how much they're going to be able to take home, So That's always been part of my problem.
Yeah, I'm with both of you on that one. And, that's something when I first started, my intention was to leave my job after a year.
Okay.
And very recently, about 2 months ago, so a total of about 5 years journey, I was able to do that. And so that was I'm very excited about that. But the reason I share that with your listeners is you are playing the long game. And, are there people that hit it huge and do make $1 million in the first month? Probably, but not that many people. I haven't met those people.
Mm-hmm.
But it is a grind, but there is a payoff at the end of it. Sometimes it just takes you a little longer than you may think. So
when you first got started, how did you get started? Did you get started with arbitrage, private label?
I started with private label, and I have done a little bit of arbitrage. I've done a little bit of drop shipping. The reason that I went the private label route was I had worked in mergers and acquisitions quite a bit, and I had seen a lot of companies that were started and sold, and that was really exciting to me. Obviously, business has two forms of value. One is like the cash flow that it puts out every month, but the second piece, and sometimes a larger piece, is the value of it if you were to exit it. And so I had seen probably 75 companies get sold. And so I've really tried to build my business into something that will be easily sold. And that's my game plan, is to continue to grow and scale it, but at some point exit and get into my next venture.
That's smart that you took that approach from the very beginning, and from having that unique perspective of watching the mergers and acquisitions kind of go on and helping with those. So what is something that, if somebody is starting their e-com either as a side hustle or with the goal, well, I guess it would be a side hustle if you have a full-time job, but with the goal of exiting at some point in time, or even not even exiting, just doing the e-com full-time, what is something that maybe folks don't take into consideration?
Yeah, I would first ask yourself, why do you want to leave your job? You hear the phrase dead end job thrown around a lot, and there are dead end jobs that exist. However, I would argue that in most positions, you are learning, and instead of quitting your job and starting something full time, maybe you look for a different job, something that is more aligned with e-commerce. So, for instance, go work for a digital marketing agency that will pay you dividends, and you'll have a steady paycheck. And so, obviously, this doesn't address your question of, firing the man, right? Quitting your job and going full time. But I don't see it as a one or the other outcome. I think there can be a smooth transition out of your job into something full time. And, when I was working at the public accounting firm, I was learning a ton. And so I kind of felt like I was getting my PhD in how to run a business, and I was getting a steady paycheck. And then I would take those principles and apply them to my own business. And so that's one of the reasons I stuck around for so long. The second thing I would say is set criteria. So one criteria that I use is replace your income by a factor of 2 to 3. If you say you make $80,000 a year, and when you quit, you want to continue to pay yourself $80,000 a year. If your business has net income of $80,000, you are going to suck all of the cash out of that company and not have any money left over for reinvestment and to grow and scale. And so when you replace your income by a factor of 2 or 3, that, allows plenty of capital to reinvest and grow, as well as compensate yourself. And, I would say the last thing is your criteria should not be, I'm going to leave when the discomfort ends. I just left, as I mentioned a couple months ago. Right up until the day that I left, I had some discomfort. Being a CPA, I'm not sure if there's a more steady job out there. And I'm risk averse, and I like that, and so I for months, I tell myself, well, what about this or what about that? And at the end of the day, you set your criteria, and when you meet that criteria, you leave, and it will be uncomfortable, but that discomfort, I would say, as an entrepreneur, probably is nice. It's a good motivator. And so yeah, those would be 3 quick tips on leaving your job. Firing the man, as we say.
Firing the man, burning the boats.
That's right.
Burning the boats.
Now, when you met Ken, did he bring that motto with him, or is that something that you guys kind of picked up along the way?
I'll tell you what, I have never met anybody like Ken Wilson, and he is all in on anything that he does. And so, I don't think he had that poster on his wall, "Burn the Boats," until recently, but I would say the way that he lives his life and the way he attacks problems and goes about his business, he's got burn the boats mentality through and through. And so, but that was something when we decided to start a podcast, he'd said we should name it Firing the Man. That was his idea. And I was very nervous about that. I had a good paying job. I didn't really want anyone to know that I was planning on firing the man, right? Just in case. And 6 months in, so we decided to name it Firing the Man. I kind of kept it as a secret. And, 6 months in, Ken did burn the boats. He quit he had a full-time engineering job. It was doing great. And he went all in on e-commerce. And then for the next, 8 months, I continued to work full-time and be the co-host of a show about quitting your job, and was feeling a little bit like a poser, but I do think that gave me a gentle push in the right direction.
Yeah, I'm sure that it did.
And do you guys also contribute product ideas with each other?
Yeah. So I would say we have very complementary skill sets. And so with my background in accounting and finance, I would say that my brain is organized into rows and columns, just like an Excel sheet. And Ken he's a network engineer by trade, and is a digital marketing wizard. And so there are certain things that he's doing exclusively for all of his brands, and some things that I'm doing exclusively on all of my brands. And we've partnered up, and has been a tremendous partner in business and on the podcast. And can't say enough good things about that guy.
Awesome. And we're jumping around a little bit, but I had this thought earlier and I forgot to throw it in. So you said that you got started with the private label. How did you pick your first product? Did you go by one of the courses that said was a hot deal, or did you follow kind of a passion?
So I'm going to give you my first and second. The first one was a candlestick holder. All right. So imagine a 6-inch candle that you light and you're holding it. And unless there's a little cardboard circle that sits above it, the wax is going to drip on your hand. Okay. Uh-huh. Can you kind of visualize what I'm thinking?
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'd done a Jungle Scout training, and I bought the Jungle Scout Chrome extension. And I had found this product that was surging, and that was these candlestick holders. And so I decided this is it. This is going to be my first product. What I did not realize was it was about 2 weeks before Easter, and in Catholic masses, they all have a candlelight vigil where these candlestick holders are used. And so there was a huge surge in volume, but mostly it's pretty flat. And I still have 10,000 of those sitting in my basement. So that was my first failure. And so, product number 2 it has gone much better and is part of my existing brand. But grew up in Amish country, knew some Amish folks that did some leather work, and brought them a couple product ideas, and have collabed with them and come out with a couple great products there.
Yeah. And your story about your collaboration with the community around you is really, really interesting to listen to. So I'll give Yanni's podcast a plug. Your episode on Prime Talk is really interesting to listen to.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I'd be happy to go into it, or you can check out that podcast. But yeah, I would say,
Yeah, tell us about it.
What's that? So
Well, we
yeah,
can dive into it here.
yeah, let's dive into it. So as I mentioned, I grew up in Amish country, and if you know, or for those of you who are unfamiliar with Amish folks, it's a type of religion and really lifestyle where they do not have electricity, no cars, no cell phone. I would say a very kind of primitive way of living. Now, they are a fantastic group of people. I love the Amish. They'd give you the shirt off their back, and they're tremendous neighbors and just good all around people. I would say they're kind of not corrupted by technology as I am, and we are,
as most of us are. Yeah,
well, and there's different sects of them too, right?
There are.
Like,
so
yeah,
true Amish, and then I believe there's another sect of Mennonites. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
And even within the Amish community, there's some subsectors where some of them will, do the horse and buggy thing. Some of them are okay with like taking a taxi, but not being the driver. And they're tremendous people. And so I had approached a family friend about making some leather products, and we made, I'd say, a couple hundred, and I launched those on Amazon. And now communicating with them, they're about 400 miles away. And so I would write them a letter, and it'd show up in the mail a couple days later. And if there was any questions, they would send me a letter back. And it may be like 6 weeks before we get to an answer. And it was that type of communication, especially for an e-commerce business, was challenging to me. And so I asked them, they do have generators, so they could potentially have internet. And so I asked them if I could buy them a computer and pay for their internet. And they said, yeah, we're fine with that, but you need to meet with our bishop. And so I made a special trip into town, and I met with the bishop. And I explained to him the reasons that I thought this was a good idea, and talked about the money that this would bring into his community. And, as I wrapped up saying what I had to say, he got real close to me. He grabbed me by the collar of my shirt and brought me in and said, "Get the hell out of my town and never come back." And in hindsight, kind of shame on me. I should have known better. But I was thinking about the business and to trying to make our communication just better. And so I ended up leaving. And as I was going out to my truck, I saw a lady checking her mail. So I started to talk to her. She was an older lady, and she was Catholic. And so what I did was I bought her a computer, and I pay for her internet. And whenever I have an order or a communication that needs to get to the Amish, I email her, and she prints it off and walks across the street. And I have replicated this model with a couple other Amish families where I will find where they're at. I will find a non-Amish neighbor and pay for their internet and a computer. And it's I don't know, it's a nice little workaround. And so anyway, so yeah, that's a little bit of background with me and the Amish.
Yeah. The first time I heard that story, I was like, oh, he went to, like, I'm listening to it as it's going on. I'm like, he went to the bishop. He said it was cool. That's how this all got started. And you're like, he told me to get the hell out. I was like, oh my God.
I'll tell you what, I thought he was going to slug me. I mean, he really clinched my shirt tightly. And I was just thinking, you idiot, thinking to myself, I should have been more thoughtful of their culture but anyway, hindsight's 2020, and we found something that works, and everyone's happy now.
Good.
Got it.
Good.
Got it. And so, are the Amish supplying all of your brands, or are you sourcing from anywhere else?
I am sourcing internationally. I would say it's probably 50-50 now. I really like a couple things I like about the Amish. One, they're tremendous people. They do a really good job. They make really nice products. And another reason I like working with them is they're on U.S. soil. And so when you think of sea shipping items, especially if it's in the oversized category, there's additional freight there and time. And so, from the time I send an order to the Catholic neighbor to the time that my products show up at an Amazon warehouse is about 2 to 3 weeks. And so I really like that. Outside of that, I'm sourcing internationally from China and a couple other places.
Okay. And how did, I'm guessing it was more of a bootstrapping process, learning how to deal with the different countries. Obviously, dealing with someone in the U.S. is going to be different no matter what. You in particularly are dealing with something a bit more complex, where you can't just give them a call, you can't just shoot them an email. So you found this workaround. But sourcing internationally is different. How did you learn to source internationally, I guess is my question.
I'll tell you what. So when I first started, it started with an Alibaba search and probably a message to 40 or so suppliers. And I tended to get maybe 25% of them would respond. And so it was kind of the spray and pray method, where I would contact as many people, if it looked like they were remotely close to manufacturing what I had in mind, I would reach out to them. And I did find a couple suppliers that way. However, I did Francois, I'm right in the middle of an RFQ process with Noviland, and that has been, and we can talk about that off air, but that's been going very well. And I think a lot of people start on Alibaba just because it's easy. But what I have found is products that I have sourced on Alibaba tend to be a little more competitive. You either have your manufacturer who also has a retail arm and they're competing against you and are always going to beat you on price. Or because it's easy and accessible, you have other people reaching out to them and manufacturing the same product. And so if I'm going to go accounting nerd for a couple seconds here, but if I look at return on investment for inventory I've purchased through Alibaba and for inventory compared to inventory I've sourced off of Alibaba, I would say the ROI is about double when I'm going off Alibaba.
Okay.
And so I guess what were some of the struggles that you encountered with Alibaba? Everyone has different struggles. A lot of companies that I talk to have the most amazing experience. They find a great supplier or a great trade agent, or they just find, a sourcing agent that helps them sort of navigate even Alibaba and 1688, DHgate, and all these other sourcing marketplaces. I guess, what were some of the trials and tribulations that you encountered when going through Alibaba?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, I would say the first would be no response. One thing I think when you're first getting started there's a challenge of having people take you seriously. And I understand that from a manufacturer's perspective, they want to be dealing with high volume people typically. And so no response was probably the first issue that I had. Second would be an MOQ, minimum order quantity, of 20,000 units. It'd be a really big factory. When I'm starting to sell a product, I tend to order as few as possible because I don't know if it's going to sell. I can look at the Jungle Scout data and run some keyword research, and I can feel pretty good about a product. But in the past, I've had products I felt good about that have not performed well.
Candlestick holders.
That's a perfect example. And so that's another issue. And then I would say just not a very streamlined communication process. Sometimes you'd get a response a week later, sometimes a month later. And so anyway, and I would also say when I was on Alibaba, I was newer to the product sourcing game. And so I've learned quite a bit, in terms of how to approach a supplier but I will say thus far, I've been very impressed with Noviland. And Listen, people, they did not pay me to tell you this.
We didn't talk to David about this beforehand. We're not paying anyone that's listening.
Yeah. I've really enjoyed that. And, I would say if you, have had struggles, give it a try. And so, am looking to, source and push a couple of products that you guys have found across the finish line. But, navigating in other countries, and perhaps different languages is something that I find incredibly challenging. And, if I can find an expert that does a more effective job, then as a business owner, I should be going that route.
Right. And so actually one question I feel like has always been on the tip of my tongue, and it kind of just got brought to light now, but what are the differences between when you first started on Alibaba and the request that you send now? You mentioned that, you were newer, so you struggled a little bit more, but what is that difference in communication? What do you tell them that's different?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I will share with you after this podcast a template that I use. And it's a message that I send to every supplier. And I'm going to paraphrase here, but it goes something like this. Hi, my name is David Schomer. I am the purchasing manager for company X. We are seeking an initial trial order of 500 units. We anticipate annual purchase volume of 3,000 to 5,000 units, just to let them know that you're trying it out, but you are going to ramp up at some point. And then I will go through some specifications, real specific, like I want this to have a handle. I want this to be nonstick, so on and so forth. And once you have that canned message, you can, send it out to quite a few suppliers. And so I'll send that template over to you. It's been refined over the years, but I had found that I was getting like similar follow-up questions from a lot of different suppliers. And so I thought, well, let me just include this information in my preliminary message.
There you go.
And so typically the communication is a little slower because when it's daytime here, it's nighttime in China. And every time there's a back and forth item, it takes a day. And sometimes there's 20 back and forth items before you get a sample nailed down. And so I just try to be as descriptive as I can on the front end.
Now, do you include a list of questions with your request?
Question?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And I typically will ask if I can add a logo or some sort of branding. That's important to me just to differentiate myself. And that's a barrier to entry for a counterfeit seller, is to have some sort of logo. I'll ask about packaging, what their capabilities are there. I used to ask if they're a trade company or a manufacturer, and I don't anymore. And here's the reason. Trading companies will typically find a manufacturer for you and then bump up their price, say 5 or 10%. But because I'm reaching out to a lot of different suppliers, when I get quotes back, I like to have, between 5 and 10. And so I like to see what a trading company can come up with, because they may have a good connection or a better relationship with a certain factory. And at the end of the day, I am most concerned about return on investment. And if a trading company can make 10 or 15% of my order, more power to them. I think that's about it in terms of questions.
Interesting. Yeah, because I have this might go with my quarrel with courses, but I have seen some courses propose a list of like 20 to 30 questions for people to send out to their suppliers. And my immediate thought, just sort of on the sourcing side, is no one wants to deal with this shit. No legitimate factory will take, an Amazon seller that they've never heard about when they're getting, if they're on Alibaba, they're getting dozens of requests already. they don't want to take, 30, 40 minutes out of their day to just translate it and then to, speak to their management and then to provide those answers. But when you're asking very concise manufacturing questions, for example, the packaging, the logos, I think that paints a different picture of professionalism. That's something I 100% agree with. Should always be included some manufacturing specific capability questions, and you can weed out trade agents also if you want to. But, their delays or just manufacturing, it's sort of an indicator of it. But I also agree with trade agents. They have a tremendous value. I mean, a trade agent that knows a factory that, let's say, is making this water bottle and they've been making it for 2 decades and can get you tremendously lower pricing than a factory that hasn't ever made this water bottle but responds to you because they think they could. They say, hey, I think I have the machinery for it. I think that's doable, right? And then you're ending up with, it could be shitty quality, it could be higher MOQs, it could be a ridiculous price because they don't actually know what the cost of production is. So yeah, no, I just wanted to, I guess, agree with you on a lot of those points, but also make sure that everyone knows that the questions are manufacturing specific. They are not how many people do you have in your office? They're not, how quick are you going to respond? What, defect rate are you going to provide me? Not what penalties can I put on you if you delay production by X number of days? And I've seen these questions up front. And I say, hey, this is a negotiation tactic. This you can bring these to light once you get the quotes, once you develop a relationship, once you have things going. That's perfectly fine. But up front, it just seems ridiculous to me.
Yeah, I will agree with you on the, being as concise as possible. We've all received that email from someone that we've never met before. That is 5 paragraphs long. And I just think you're an asshole. Like, I don't even know you. And you're, this is going to be a 5 to 10 minute exercise. And I have way too many 5 to 10 minute exercises on my list anyway. And right. So, I do try to put myself in the shoes of the person receiving it. And so, yeah, being as concise as possible, just getting the need to know info out there is a good thing.
And then in regards to negotiations, because I'm guess, with this being in the game this long, you are into negotiations with some of your suppliers. If it's not, trading terms, it might be pricing. How do you go about handling those? And everyone does it different. So this isn't going to be a cookie cutter answer for anyone. But sort of what are your insights on it?
Yeah, so it's kind of a several phase process. And when I place my first order, I tend not to negotiate on price. And especially if it's an example where I'm ordering 500, but they're really like a 5,000 MOQ factory and they're doing me a favor. I always negotiate on order number 2, as long as I am increasing my volume. One thing that I think people may not think about in negotiation is your manufacturer needs to make money. In order for them to be in existence next month, they need to make money this month. And so if you are successful in beating them down on price and they're making 3% on your orders, but they have another customer that they can make 20% on their orders, well, guess who's going to the front of the line when they're busy, right? And there's a backlog. And so typically I will negotiate on order number 2. Another thing that I like to negotiate on is payment terms. This is a cash flow game. And especially if you're doing sea shipping, you can have a lot of capital tied up in products that are not sellable. And so one that I really like is 30% down payment, 40% when the goods are completed, and 30% when they arrive. And but really, I mean, as good of terms as you can negotiate, I think that's something that a lot of people overlook. And there is a point of indifference between a price discount and terms discount. Let's see. And typically I will ask for volume thresholds, especially if I'm ordering my first order and it's 500 units. I like to know at what point will this get cheaper for me. And I usually take a screenshot of that and I put it in a vendor folder. And so, from a factory standpoint, there's some like setup time involved in swapping out tooling and everything to make 500 units. And it's a lot more efficient to make 15,000 units. And
Right.
so, and so there are some efficiencies gained there, and it is nice when they share those with you. So those are like some pro tips on negotiations. I'm going to share a failure, just because
please.
So, I was pretty far along the lines. I got samples from a company, and I just could not get their pricing to where I wanted it to be. And I said, unless you can get to $3, I have this other factory and they can make it for $3 per unit. And they were priced at $4 per unit. And unless you can match that price, I'm going to go with that other supplier. And they responded with, you better go with that other supplier. And I didn't have one. They called my bluff. No. And so, I like to share success stories and things that have worked for me, but oftentimes there's tremendous value in those failure stories. And I would say I like to be pretty transparent about those if I can help anybody. So pro tip, if you're going to use that tactic, make sure you do have a backup supplier and make sure they do charge $3 per unit.
Well, also make sure that you're comparing apples to apples, right? I think that's a big flaw in a lot of businesses when they try to compare it to, let's say, Alibaba. They'll say, oh, I saw it on their 200 units for 8 cents a piece. Well, that factory actually has 8 cents a piece for an entire container load, and 200 units is actually going to be $2.50. And you won't find that out until, they find out about your logo. They might have been closer to making you a sample, or it's just deeper in the conversation in general. And so it's making sure that you're comparing apples to apples and not apples to oranges. It could be also be quality, right? They could be using a plastic or cheap piece internally, whereas, the little bit more expensive a factory that doesn't list this specific specification is using something like a ceramic or a higher end material internally in that design. I've seen that happen far too often, and it ends up being more costly in the down the line, right? I mean, you're paying for all the Amazon fees, all the shipping, and then you're also paying for the returns, and you're paying for the 1-star reviews, and having to sell 10 times as many units because you need to negate that 1-star review that you just got because you have bad quality. Did you have any experiences, I guess, with bad quality from any of your suppliers?
I have. And one thing that I have learned a lesson on is to get inspections and get inspections with every order. In the past, I have, let the supplier know that I'm going to have inspections on the first order, and first order looks great. And I figure I'm going to save $100 on the second order and not do an inspection. And it's just good insurance, especially if you're, purchasing, thousands of dollars of product. It's just build that into your cost and do it. I would say that I have also had instances where I've sourced something that I was very optimistic about, and the sample showed up and it wasn't quite where I wanted it to be, but I thought, I'm excited about launching this, so I'm just going to go for it. And one bit of advice I would tell to everybody is one overlooked tactic is sell nice stuff, right? It seems, people get caught up in conversion rates and listing optimization, but it's like, sell nice stuff. Like, I have received packages that the product has exceeded my expectations. I'm more likely to leave a review. I have had products that have showed up as a consumer, right, that have not met my expectations. And I'm either not going to leave a review or I'm going to leave a negative review. And so I know people are often excited to get to market, but, find a supplier that's going to make nice stuff. And, this is a little bit of a tangent, but when you were talking, I thought about this. I have been in masterminds where I've heard people brag about just beating down their suppliers on price. And there's a certain business style there. And I would say that is not my style.
Mhm.
When I think of my suppliers and the manufacturers that I work with, they are part of my team. And oftentimes they know more about the product that they're manufacturing than I do, right? They know how it's built. They know all of the,
Of course.
and I am, sitting on the outside and, just observing. And so oftentimes they'll have really good suggestions. And I like to ask them, like, do you have any suggestions on how to make this stronger or more durable or rust resistant? And, because they have expertise in that area, oftentimes they give really good advice. And so, the other thing I would say is, as a private label brand owner, without my manufacturers, I don't have a business.
Mhm.
You had used the example of a water bottle. If me as a uh, private label brand owner, if I don't know how to make water bottles and I'm selling water bottles, well, guess what? I'm heavily reliant on a manufacturer. I would say that is like the most important part of the team is the people that are making the widgets. And so I do think negotiation is an important piece, but I really like to be gentle. And do I probably leave some money on the table? Yes, but I view that as a reinvestment into the relationship.
And so,
Right.
taking just like one quick step back, when you're talking about other than just sell nice stuff, and you're talking about getting quality inspections, if you receive a sample that is maybe less than what you had expected, how did you personally come up with like your key quality indicators? How did you determine what was going to be what you had asked for either in the next order or from your next supplier?
Yeah, so that has developed over time, and one thing that I do now, and this is a little bit dorky, but when I receive a sample, I sit down and I have an app called Voice Memos, and you only get one first impression, right?
Mhm.
Once the sample has arrived and you've had time to think about it, your opinion of it might change. But when you're opening that sample, that is as close to a customer as you will ever get, right?
Mhm.
If you end up sourcing and selling this product, uh, you are in the shoes of that consumer. And so I will turn on my voice memo, and when I open it, I will just here are my first impressions, and I'll document
Mm.
that. And
Mhm.
I think that is so critical. I would say like packaging is one where I in the past had overlooked that because there was a great product inside, but the packaging was terrible. And from the time I see it on my doorstep, I think of it as I am a consumer. I'm going to document how I feel throughout this process, and that's been very valuable.
And when you do you like sometimes also buy a product that may be similar to something that you're selling or that you like purchase and the packaging or marketing is really blowing you away and you take a note of that to apply to your product later?
Absolutely, absolutely. That's one thing that I'll give an example. And I'm not sponsored by them. I just am a huge fan of their shorts. But have you guys heard of Bird Dog Shorts?
Oh
I
yeah.
have,
I've
yes.
seen ads everywhere.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're marketing like crazy right now.
Yeah.
So super fun brand and really good product. I really like their shorts and Bird Dogs. If you're listening, sponsor me, please. But they had some really catchy packaging, really cool boxes, and I actually modeled some of my boxes off of theirs. Product inserts is another one. I think there's some tactful ways to ask for a review,
Mhm.
and I think there are some sketchy ways to ask for a review. And I always make note of the tactful ways to ask for reviews. And so that is something that I'm always looking on how I can improve my current products. And I would say that extends to when I'm shopping at brick and mortar retailers. So for instance, I am in the pet supplies space, and I will, anytime I walk by a pet aisle, I go down it. I just like to
Mhm.
see what's new, what's selling, um, and I take note of packaging and everything. And so, um, So that's a long-winded answer, Lisa, for yes,
I
I
love
do.
it.
I do that.
Well, and we'll have to talk offline about your pet product because you're talking to two dog parents right here. So we'll have to talk about that.
Yeah, I got an old boy. Yeah,
We
and
both
about
have
the
old
insert.
boys.
Yeah, about the insert. I think that's interesting because everyone has their own tactic with cart inserts, and Amazon is very vague with what they say is Amazon compliance and Amazon terms of service. I think it's just you're not supposed to ask for a 5-star review. Is that right?
I don't know for sure, and so I'm going to
Okay.
preface my answer with this. The language that I use and have had no issues with this is we would really appreciate your feedback if you were to leave us an honest review. That helps us make improvements to our products, something like that. Now, but you're right, the terms of service are very vague. And so I would encourage anybody, if you are going to do a product insert, look at them and make that decision for yourself. Because it is one of those categories that I don't feel like it's a gray hat technique. But if you look at the terms of service, it may be interpreted that way. And, I rely on my Amazon account to support my livelihood. And so I always am making a best effort to be compliant there.
Yeah, play by the rules. Yeah, I think it says, from what I've learned from the Amazon groups, that you can't ask outright for a 5-star, and then you also can't ask for a review in exchange for something.
Yeah, I've seen that too. Yeah,
but I've gotten Amazon packages and had that insert 100%.
I've had that too, but what I actually just got the other day, it was the stationary bike that I just ordered.
Yeah.
And they had very similar to what you were mentioning, David, in regards to, we love to improve on our product, leave us an honest review, but they had an image of 5 stars. And so they were asking for an honest review, but honestly, for them asking for an honest review, and I was okay with the bike. I wasn't ecstatic about it, but I was like, this is good. All right, 5 stars. I'll take the 5 stars. I'll give 5 stars really quick. And now Amazon, I think, has that one tap method where you just go to your orders and you're able to just tap if you like to, leave a certain number of stars, and you could write a review. And that's in lieu of what they just got rid of, the early reviewer program, I think. Is that right?
I wasn't aware that early reviewer program is no longer. And
you have
but
4 to 5 days left.
Yeah. I should enroll a couple of brands that I've been meaning to do. Thanks for the reminder. What was your question? I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I was just leaving a thought in regards to your cart insert and how I just received one. And instead of them asking for a 5-star review, it felt more like they psychologically played me.
Subliminally. Yeah.
They put 5 stars here, but they asked me for an honest review to continue improving on the product. And I left honest opinions on the product. So I told them, hey, the seat was too rough, super easy to assemble. They could make it a little bit, softer of a cushion. They may include some complimentary goods or whatever I put there. I left some pictures even. But I gave them 5 stars. And I think mostly because they showed me 5 stars. I was like, this merits 5 stars. Yeah. It's not a horrible experience for the price that I got it at. It's 5 stars.
Yeah, definitely. One last thing on these product inserts is Ken split tests everything. He's literally everything. And one thing that he's done is split tested product inserts. And one thing that he does is he includes a picture of himself. And it's kind of like get to know the owner of the brand. Yeah. It's a really good one. And that's been, when I re-up on my product inserts, that's going to be something that I'm doing. I think it just kind of puts a face with the brand and statistically results in more reviews. So that's a little pro tip for anyone thinking about going that route.
Yeah, that makes total sense though, because our nature is to buy from people or people that we know or like, as opposed to buying from brands or companies. We don't want to buy from this as humans. You want to know that you're helping somebody. So that's actually a really smart tactic.
Definitely. Now I know you guys are interviewing me, but I do have a question for you,
Okay.
just because you're
Let's
very
hear it.
involved in this world. So this has to do with product packaging, and I'm simply looking for, do you think this is a good idea?
Okay.
Reusable packaging is it's sustainable. It's good for the environment. Da, 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 da. And I have a product that would fit a box that would approximately fit $1 bill. And I feel like everybody has an envelope or something in their house that they put cash in. Mine is just an old plain envelope, but it would be not like my dad had a nice wooden box where he put his cash. And so I think, reusable packaging has been top of mind this week. And I think, that I'm going to make it perfect to fit like $1 bill. What do you think of that idea? Do you think, people would appreciate that or what?
I think you could take that in so many directions. I think you can also include like skins for it and maybe some stickers that they can decorate the box with, or maybe you can offer stickers part of your brand and they can decorate that one box. And I mean, you're in the pet category. Maybe you can make it a, save up for your next vet bill or for treats or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought about it for the children more so, because then you can offer stickers with that, and then maybe the children could decorate it their own and they could paint on it, use that as like a new little ATM machine. That's what I actually used to do when I was a kid. That's what immediately sparked my brain. Lisa, what are your thoughts?
I think that it's great. I'm a big sustainability nut to begin with.
Yeah.
I really am. So I love anything that I can reuse. And it's funny that you said people have like an envelope or something that they keep their money in. I keep all of like, whenever you get like a credit card bill or something in the mail and they give you the envelope to send back your payment in, but everybody uses online payments anyway. So usually people just throw the envelopes away. I have a stack of those in my office because I don't want to throw them away. But my cash that I keep, and if you didn't know I was a millennial, now you do. All my cash is in a Crown Royal bag.
Nice.
Where do you keep that bag, Lisa?
In my safe. Not telling you where it is in the combo, but I do think that having a box like that would be great. And especially if your product is something that people are going to be like, it's not like a one-time purchase. If it's something that's going to be, monthly subscription or multiple times a year, that would be a great way for people to even give folks money for like birthdays or Christmas, even if you don't have like skins or stickers for it. Because in some families, in our family specifically, like there's too many of us and it's too hard to shop for all of us. So the aunts and uncles will just give the kids cash. So that's a great way, as opposed to just doing like, the envelopes or whatever. I think it's fantastic.
All right. Well, good. Well, I've been working on this project today, and I haven't had time to bounce it off of Ken, so I thought I'd bounce it off you guys. Thank you for your feedback.
You're welcome.
I'm sure I'm going to get a box in the next 6 months, some random that Kate orders, and it's going to have a little insert where you can put dollar bills, and they're going to have her in here from David. No, that's awesome. I hope that's one of the products that you're going through with us, because I want to see the box.
Yeah,
also.
for real.
For sure. We'll have to hook you up with a couple. So.
Oh yeah.
Awesome. Well, we are coming to the end of the hour. I was just gonna.
Yeah, believe it or not,
I know.
Quick.
Isn't that quick?
That felt a lot quicker than usual.
Well, you have successfully fired the man, but like I'd mentioned before we went live, or maybe when we were live, I don't know. You just changed your LinkedIn title and you are now the co-founder of a company. Let's talk about 80/20. What is that?
Yeah. Well, let me start with the name. 80/20 is a rule of the universe. And if anyone hasn't read the 80/20 rule, it's a fantastic book and something that Ken and I talk about quite a bit. But what Ken and I are doing is we have created a management company where we are folding in all of our private label brands. As I mentioned, there are some things that Ken is a wizard at that I am terrible at. So he does that for all the portfolio companies. And I do the same for areas that I'm strong in. And so our game plan is to start raising capital at Q3 and Q4 of 2021 and start making some acquisitions. I've lived in that world in the mergers and acquisition space for a really long time. And really enjoy that. And so that's, phase 2 for us is to start making some acquisitions and building out, a private equity fund.
Very cool.
And so are those going to be, are you primarily going to be focusing on any successful Amazon brand or brands that you can stand behind and that you believe in?
You know, I would say that we're going to look at just about anything.
Okay.
But I would like to find something, especially for our first acquisition, that is complementary to one of our existing brands. So for instance, I'm in the pet space. So if it was something else in the pet space that we could roll up, I think that would be good. And the other thing that I think is going to be a criteria for us is a product that we like. You know what I mean? I can tell you, if writing blog articles about a candlestick holder would have been miserable. And so in a lot of ways, I'm glad that product failed. But you know, there are, once you pick a product or a brand, you spend a ton of time developing content for those ideas and taking pictures. And I would hate to pick something that I am not passionate about or don't find interesting at all.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's what we're up to. Very
cool. That's very exciting.
Awesome.
Yeah. Congratulations. That's awesome.
Can't wait to see what comes of it. Yeah.
I know.
It's interesting. Really, you know, building out. So, and just excuse my ignorance with it, but are you getting a brand and then you're going to continue growing that brand yourself? Okay.
Yeah. So, you know, I would say that throughout growing a private label brand, people tend to plateau or hit certain bumps in the road.
Okay.
And you know, there are some people that just want out. Something comes up, so. But yeah, we would be expanding into international marketplaces, and then also, as I mentioned, Ken is a wizard at building email lists and driving traffic to his own website, and so there would be an off Amazon component there. But yeah, continuing to grow and scale. And, you know, we've looked at some companies that are doing great. They are crushing it, and we don't feel like we could add a lot of value. So it's not a great opportunity. So I would say there's a courting process that goes on, much like dating in the M&A space. And, you know, that courting process, you know, it has to be a good fit on both sides.
Absolutely. Well, David, thank you so much for your time. If anybody has any questions about your new venture or about Firing the Man, where can they find the show? Where can they contact you? How can they find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll give out my email address. It is david@firingtheman.com. Okay. You can also check out our podcast. It is played anywhere podcasts are played. So iTunes, Apple Play, there's like 23 hosting services that we go through. But
we need to catch up.
I know.
Yeah,
hold on.
Yeah, we'll have to talk. Yeah, we can talk offline about that. But yeah, check out the podcast. And if anyone is thinking about firing the man and has some questions, feel free to reach out to Ken or I. Would be happy to help.
Wonderful.
Awesome.
So
awesome.
Thank you both for having me on the podcast. This was I've been a guest on a handful of them, and man, conversation really flowed well today, and that hour just flew by. So
it did so quick.
Yeah,
that was an exciting talk, though. I appreciate you being so open, not just
so
about
much.
your successes, but also, you know, the difficult times that you went through, and being honest about it. I think that's something that a lot of Amazon sellers tend to struggle with internally, and sometimes it's hard to vocalize. So I really do appreciate you having done that today too.
Yeah, absolutely. You're gonna hit bumps in the road. It's gonna happen. You're gonna fail at something. It is inevitable, and so I like to be pretty transparent about that. But I appreciate it.
I love it.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much for your time, Swa. Thank you again for being here, as always. And once again, this is Link Up Leaders, and we look forward to seeing everybody for our next episode in a few days. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.